Nestled deep within the rolling hills of Lincolnshire, a stately brick manor rises quietly behind a wrought iron gate. Here, far from palace walls and public glare, lives a woman whose story once brushed the fate of a princess, and perhaps of a nation. Lady Sarah McCorquodale, sister to Diana, confidant of royalty, and the guardian of a life built not on spotlight, but on tradition, loyalty, and quiet grace. Today, we step inside her $4 million countryside retreat to uncover the home, the fortune, and the story of a noble life lived far from noise, yet close to history. She was born into nobility, but destiny never gave her the crown. Elizabeth Sarah Lavinia Spencer, later known to the world as Lady Sarah McCorquodale, was not just another daughter of the aristocracy. She was a Spencer, a name woven tightly into the fabric of British history, a family where privilege met pressure, and titles were carried not just with honor, but with the weight of generations. From a young age, Sarah's world was shaped by polished manners and ancestral expectations. Raised at Althorp, the Spencer family's storied estate, she bore the courtesy title, the Honorable, a name that echoed through the marbled halls of high society. But in 1975, when her grandfather passed away and her father became the 8th Earl Spencer, Sarah's title transformed. Lady Sarah was born, and with it came a new chapter. But was her path ever truly her own? Sent to Riddlesworth Hall, a prestigious boarding school in Norfolk, then to West Heath School in Kent. Sarah was groomed like any well-bred lady of her time, but inside, she was fighting a battle no royal protocol could fix. In her early 20s, Sarah quietly battled anorexia nervosa, a silent struggle behind closed doors. Long before the world learned of Diana's fragility, Sarah had already faced her own shadows, proving that grace doesn't always come easily, and that behind the smiles, some scars are unseen. After school, she chose the independence of London life, stepping away from Althorp's manicured grounds to earn her own way. Working, living, breathing outside of titles. It was a bold move for a woman raised in formality, but perhaps a quiet rebellion in a family known for duty. Then came 1977, and a moment that would ripple through history. Lady Sarah began dating Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne. At first, it was the kind of match that sparked royal gossip columns and polite applause. A Spencer with a Windsor, it seemed inevitable. But Sarah was not one to be tamed by protocol. She famously granted a candid interview to 2 journalists, admitting to past drinking, struggles with body image, and joking that she had thousands of boyfriends. Then came the line that would end it all. "I wouldn't marry Charles if he were the dustman or the King of England." She gave the article to Charles herself. He read it and was furious. The relationship ended abruptly. And so did any dream of tiaras for Sarah. But out of heartbreak came something unexpected. Because it was through Sarah that Diana first met Prince Charles. A quiet introduction during a visit to Althorp would eventually ignite one of the most watched romances in history. Lady Sarah later said, with a hint of fate in her voice, "I introduced them. I was Cupid." Yet while Diana stepped into the global spotlight, Sarah remained in the wings, a witness to a fairy tale that would both dazzle and destroy. What was it like to watch your younger sister become the most photographed woman in the world? To see the world embrace her, while you retreated into silence? Despite what many believed, Lady Sarah and Diana were close, especially in later years. She often accompanied the princess on royal visits as a lady-in-waiting, not just as a sister, but as one of the few people Diana still trusted. And when the unthinkable happened in August 1997, Sarah flew to Paris with Prince Charles and her sister Jane to bring Diana's body home. She stood beside her casket and later helped read her will at the funeral. It was not just grief, it was duty, in sorrow. And in that moment, Lady Sarah wasn't just the older sister. She was the protector of a legacy. So how does a woman so deeply tied to royal tragedy find peace again? To answer that, we leave behind the palace corridors and step into the countryside, where Lady Sarah built a life far removed from royal headlines. Let's explore the place she calls home, a $4 million sanctuary nestled in the quiet elegance of Lincolnshire. Estate in Lincolnshire. What does a woman who's lived in the shadow of royalty choose when she gets to design a life on her own terms? For Lady Sarah McCorquodale, the answer isn't a palace. It's something quieter, something rooted in tradition, something profoundly English. Her sanctuary lies in Uffington, Lincolnshire, a region where wildflowers grow along winding roads and ancient trees cast shade over stone fences weathered by time. Here, behind a modest iron gate and a long gravel drive, sits a home that speaks volumes, without ever raising its voice. Valued at $4 million, Lady Sarah's Lincolnshire country estate isn't just a house. It's a statement of quiet dignity, a place where nobility meets normalcy, and where the past is embraced, not escaped. From the moment you step onto the grounds, you feel the sense of order and care. The landscaped gardens are vast but intimate, with ivy creeping up the red brick walls, a fountain gurgling softly near the hedgerows, and wide lawns that invite barefoot afternoons or thoughtful morning walks. The manor itself stands with an old-world charm that whispers rather than shouts. Its 9 bedrooms stretch across a stately layout, ideal for hosting family or retreating in privacy. But it's the architecture, the symmetry, the warmth of the brick, the centuries-old lines softened by climbing roses that sets it apart. Inside, the home opens with a high-ceilinged foyer, where sunlight spills in from tall sash windows framed in cream. The floors are original wood, polished and sturdy beneath antique rugs. In the drawing room, armchairs face a wide hearth, and the walls are adorned with soft-toned portraits and faded books, not for show, but for memory. Walk further and you reach the kitchen, a blend of rustic charm and modern comfort. There's an Aga stove at the center, its enamel finish echoing the kind of meals meant to be slow-cooked and shared. The dining room just beyond is candlelit in the evenings, where generations of McCorquodale's have likely gathered for birthdays, holidays, and quiet Tuesday dinners. Each bedroom has its own character, some with floral wallpapers and vintage vanities, others with sleeker tones and fresh linens, ready to welcome children, grandchildren, or dear friends who simply need rest. And then there's the library, a small room with floor-to-ceiling shelves, where Lady Sarah is known to spend hours in the company of letters, diaries, and the occasional volume of family history. Yet it's the outdoor spaces that make this estate feel timeless. To the west, a stone terrace overlooks a pond where ducks glide beneath weeping willows. To the east, a heated outdoor pool, modest yet elegant, offers summer respite when the sun breaks through England's clouds. Scattered throughout are quiet sitting areas, a bench tucked beneath an apple tree, a vine-wrapped pergola that shades a small breakfast nook, and gravel pathways where a dog might wander freely beside a woman in a linen coat, tea in hand, thoughts adrift. It's not luxury in the modern sense. There's no gold, no marble, no flash. Instead, it's luxury in the old sense. Space, silence, and legacy. This is a home built for living, not for entertaining the masses. And that's exactly the way Lady Sarah wants it. Because here, behind the gates of Lincolnshire, she is no longer the sister of Diana, no longer the one who dated Charles. Here, she is Sarah McCorquodale, wife, mother, and guardian of a simpler kind of royalty, the kind found in quiet mornings, in family dinners, and in the stillness of an English garden kissed by the wind. But Lady Sarah's connection to the land goes deeper than just a place to live. It's a place tied to duty, tradition, and public service. A legacy she's upheld in her own quietly powerful way. We explore her roles as High Sheriff and Hunt Mistress, and how she balanced ceremony and controversy with unwavering grace. How do you carry the weight of legacy without letting it define you? For Lady Sarah McCorquodale, tradition was never just ceremony. It was responsibility with purpose, woven into the rhythm of her life in Lincolnshire. And though she stepped back from the royal spotlight, she never stepped away from public service. In 2009, at an age when many choose quiet retirement, Lady Sarah accepted the title of High Sheriff of Lincolnshire, an ancient office that dates back over 1,000 years. It was more than symbolic. As High Sheriff, she became the Queen's representative for law and order in the county, attending judicial ceremonies, supporting emergency services, and showing up where it mattered most, in the community. She didn't arrive in a limo or deliver grand speeches. Instead, she walked into Home Start Grantham, a small charity supporting local families, and spent time listening, truly listening, to the everyday struggles of parents, children, and care workers. What does it mean when someone of her stature looks you in the eye and says, "Tell me your story"? To those she met, it meant everything. And to Sarah, it meant anchoring privilege in purpose. But perhaps the most visible emblem of her connection to local tradition came in 2010, when she became Master of the Belvoir Hunt, one of the oldest and most prestigious fox hunts in England. To many, this role would seem ceremonial, a nod to old England, tweed jackets and polished boots. But for Lady Sarah, it was a matter of heritage and stewardship. The Belvoir Hunt, based near the Grand Belvoir Castle, was more than a sport. It was a cultural cornerstone, deeply woven into the rural rhythm of Lincolnshire. And Sarah's role wasn't passive. She was out there, riding, observing, guiding, upholding the codes of conduct, managing disputes, and ensuring that tradition evolved with dignity. But as with all things rooted in the past, controversy was never far behind. In 2018, the hunt was thrust into public scandal when a longtime hunt employee, George Grant, was charged with assaulting 2 anti-hunt monitors. The headlines were swift and the criticism unrelenting. What did Lady Sarah do? She stood by him, not blindly, but with calm and careful words. She'd known Grant for 27 years. She described his behavior as out of character and defended his humanity without dismissing the gravity of the incident. It was a delicate balance, supporting a friend, acknowledging wrongdoing, and respecting the broader conversation about animal rights and tradition. In a world quick to condemn, Lady Sarah chose context over cancellation. It was a moment that revealed so much about her loyalty, her judgment, and her refusal to play to public opinion. To some, she is a relic of the past, a woman holding on to fading rituals. But to others, she's a quiet force, keeping dignity alive in an age that often forgets its roots. Lady Sarah has never used her voice loudly. She uses it intentionally. Whether wearing the High Sheriff's sash or riding through muddy fields at dawn, she carries herself not with entitlement, but with earnestness and grace. Yet her deepest mark on public life isn't found in the courtroom or on horseback, but in how she helped preserve the legacy of her beloved sister, Diana. A legacy of compassion, of giving, of reaching beyond titles to touch real lives. Let's into the Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Fund, and how Lady Sarah led one of the most impactful philanthropic efforts in modern royal history. Philanthropy. How do you honor someone the world adored when you've lost them as a sister? For Lady Sarah McCorquodale, grief never became a performance. It became a mission. After Diana's tragic passing in 1997, millions mourned. But it was Lady Sarah, alongside her sister Jane, who stood at the center of that storm, quietly shouldering the heartbreak while guiding Diana home one final time from Paris. But Sarah didn't stop there. She soon took on the role of chairwoman of the Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Fund, a position not just of ceremony, but of deep responsibility. The goal was bold: to turn collective mourning into collective impact, to ensure Diana's spirit of compassion didn't vanish with the flowers laid outside Kensington Palace. Under Lady Sarah's steady hand, the fund raised over $115 million. That's more than $140 million. For causes Diana held close: landmine survivors, HIV/AIDS education, homelessness, and mental health. Lady Sarah worked with quiet precision. She met with charities, reviewed grants, and made sure every pound honored her sister's memory. She wasn't there for cameras. She was there for purpose. She once visited grassroots organizations in Africa and inner-city London alike, ensuring that the Diana touch reached those who needed it most, those whose voices were often unheard. But as the fund grew, so did the challenges. In 1998, the foundation launched a lawsuit against Franklin Mint, accusing the company of using Diana's image without permission. The case didn't succeed, but it revealed something deeper: Lady Sarah's commitment to protecting her sister's legacy, not just emotionally, but legally. For over a decade, she stood at the helm of the foundation, and even when the fund officially closed in 2012, its ripples were still being felt. In hospitals, in refugee centers, in every smile from someone whose life had been changed. So what drives a woman of wealth and title to work tirelessly for others? Perhaps it's because she understood loss not just as absence, but as a call to give more. Perhaps she saw in each life helped a piece of Diana's light kept alive. And while Lady Sarah rarely speaks in public, she never misses an event tied to her sister's memory. She attends memorials. She visits the causes. She remains, even now, a guardian of legacy. It's a role that suits her, a woman who prefers purpose over applause. And with a net worth of around $10 million, she lives not in extravagance but in quiet elegance, choosing to invest her time and name into things that matter more than image, impact, integrity, and remembrance. But who is Lady Sarah away from the public eye? Away from foundations and ceremonies? In the stillness of everyday life, what brings her joy? Who surrounds her in the golden light of Lincolnshire afternoons? Let's step into her world now, not of duty, but of family, love, and timeless peace. Personal life. Behind every grand estate and noble title, there is a quieter story. The story of home, of laughter in the kitchen, and of moments never captured in official portraits. For Lady Sarah McCorquodale, that story begins and ends with family. She married Neil Edmund McCorquodale in 1980, a man of aristocratic blood himself, with ties that wove neatly into the pages of British peerage. But theirs was not a marriage arranged by dynasties or duty. It was one of mutual respect, of shared values rooted in land, tradition, and a deep love for the countryside. Together they built a life in Lincolnshire, far from the flash of royal engagements or London tabloids. Here, between the rolling hills and centuries-old trees, they raised 3 children: Emily, George, and Celia. And in those children, Lady Sarah found something no palace could offer: continuity, comfort, and the quiet pride of motherhood. Her daughter Emily Jane, born in 1983, married James Hutt in 2012. They now have 2 children of their own, adding new footsteps to the gardens of Lincolnshire. Her son George Edmund, born in 1984, chose love across continents, marrying Bianca Moore in a romantic ceremony in South Africa. They too have expanded the McCorquodale legacy with 3 children, grandchildren who bring giggles to the old drawing room and muddy footprints to the back terrace. And then there's Celia Rose, born in 1989, who made headlines when she married George Woodhouse in a ceremony steeped in history and emotion. Why? Because Celia wore the Spencer tiara, the same iconic piece worn by Princess Diana on her wedding day. The same glimmering crown that once graced the most photographed bride in the world, now rested gently on the brow of the next generation. It was a moment that felt like a full circle, a subtle, radiant echo of a woman gone too soon, now living on through family and love. To this day, Lady Sarah remains especially close to her royal nephews, Prince William and Prince Harry. She attended both of their weddings and is said to share a quiet bond with Catherine, Princess of Wales. In fact, reports say William and Kate once spent a weekend at Lady Sarah's estate on the 16th anniversary of Diana's passing, a gesture not of protocol, but of love. Because in her, they don't just see an aunt. They see a keeper of memories, someone who knew Diana before the cameras did, and who loved her long after they were gone. But who is Lady Sarah in the in-between moments? She is a gardener, often seen pruning the hedges or walking through rows of blooming roses. She is a reader, spending long afternoons in the estate library with a cup of Earl Grey in hand. She writes letters, not emails, but letters, still embracing the art of slow connection. She finds joy not in red carpets, but in roast dinners shared with grandchildren, in dogs racing through dew-soaked fields, and in the stillness of early mornings before the estate stirs. There are no lavish galas, no stylists, no curated social media feeds, just real life, lived with elegance. A life where wealth whispers and dignity speaks the loudest. As we step back from this portrait of Lady Sarah, what remains isn't just the image of a noblewoman. It's something deeper. It's a sense that grace doesn't always make headlines. Sometimes it simply gardens quietly in Lincolnshire, raising children, remembering a sister, and carrying forward a legacy of strength without spectacle. In a world drawn to noise and spectacle, Lady Sarah McCorquodale reminds us that true grace lives in quiet places, in handwritten letters, morning gardens, and the kind of legacy that doesn't ask to be seen, only remembered. If you were moved by her story of dignity and devotion, like, share, and subscribe for more journeys into lives lived with timeless elegance.